Welcome to the channel, and if you've been here before, welcome back. Today I want to go over a Smallrig build with the Canon R5 C, specifically because there's a new cage around, and that solves quite a few problems. So when I got the R5 C initially, I got the Smallrig Black Mamba half cage because I wanted something that wasn't too big and intrusive, but that would give me enough rigging points to the camera, and so I could put a handle on it and things like that. Now the problem with this cage, and this is the problem with most of the cages, is that if you're like me, are using EF lenses and the filter adapter. So I have the Canon filter adapter here from EF to RF. You can't change the filters. The cage basically goes and interferes with the filters. So I'll remove this cage and we'll get into fitting another cage that solves that problem. And then I'll build out the rig. There is a few V-mount plates here that have come onto the market that solve powering problems with the Canon R5 C, and basically we built a minimalistic rig with all the bits and bobs. There's also timecode involved with the TentacleSync Timecode. You need a specific cable for the Canon R5 C, and there's some caveats that you need to be aware of. So go on and get into it. Obviously, nice with the Smallrig cage, the tool is underneath, so there's no problem. So the first thing is obviously I'll open up the locator. That's probably come on. No, this is fine. And then we'll take this. Okay, so that's loose. Need to remove lens and filter to get it off. Actually put the cap on. Okay. Put this aside for now. So that's that. That goes in, and don't forget to put the tool back in. And the cage that I'm fitting instead is the Kondor blue Cine cage that was specifically designed for the Canon R5 C. The Kondor blue Cine cage comes in a whole bunch of pieces, and as you can see, I've already organized my screws here. It feels a bit cumbersome that it is split apart like this, but it actually makes it much easier to fit, and you'll see why. But yeah, first things first. And also here, Kondor Blue has provided the tools in the cage with magnets in there, which is really neat. So that's that, and then there is a locator screw. There's a small one here. It slides into your strap locks. So that's the long screws for this bottom one here. Is it? No, it's not. Every joint has 2 screws, so they feel a bit small, but definitely something you'd easily lose. I'm losing the tool instead. At least that's easy to find. And because it uses the strap locks, that's the reason that it's actually it uses them on both sides. It gives a really tight fit. But that's the reason that it needs to be assembled in multiple parts. There's the other side. That's where the long screws come in, and again that goes into the strap lock, and then we'll add these longer screws here. There's protectors for your HDMI and your USB-C cable on the side. And then the top bit is usually a bit tricky. Give it a bit of push here, try to fit it in there. So that's in, that's in, that one is not. That one is in now. And the same thing here. Basically give it a little bit of violence. One really nice touch that I find is that it has a spirit level here on the top. That's good to have. The other thing, the original Kondor blue cage for the Canon R5 used the hot shoe as your second mounting point. And since the Canon R5 C has the multifunction hot shoe and you want to use that for the audio interface, they have changed how the top bar is set up and the hot shoe remains usable. That's quite important. So it's not something that you really very often would take off or put back on again. It's basically once you have it fitted, it stays with the camera. But that makes sense for something like the Canon R5 C. Basically you would want to rig that out and then leave it as is. Where with other cameras you might use the cage occasionally when you do video, but you might not want to use it when you want to do still photography. Last one are the two in the front. And then we put the tools back in place. So one nice touch with the Kondor blue cage is that it has this ARRI style mount here, and that's for a, where is it? That is for an ARRI style rod mount. It just basically clicks in here, and then you can have your rod here like this or like this at the front. I won't be using this today, simply because I'm mounting a rod base plate because we were going to mount a V-mount to this. So Kondor Blue also gives us this Arca Swiss tripod plate with it, and that's real handy because it's wider and it's designed for the DJI Ronin gimbals so that you can slide the camera sideways to balance it better. So that's quite neat. So anyhow, next stage is the rod base plate. I'm using a Smallrig base plate, but I'm not using the one that most people are used to. So generally, the one people are used to is this one. And the problem with this one is that on the bottom it has 3 screws vertical, and that means I want to mount this tripod plate horizontally, and I can't do that with this. So that's the first problem I'm having with that. Now, Smallrig make this alternative one, and that has the same. It has like 3 screws vertical and it has 3 screws horizontal, and it fits exactly for 2 screws from this. And by using 2 screws in the tripod plate, we also prevent that the tripod plate twists around. It's the last thing you want. It's actually one of my major peeves with most mirrorless and DSLR cameras, that there's only one 1/4 inch thread under the camera and no locator pin, and that means when you fit a tripod plate, it can just twist around if it's not tightened fully. Even when it's fully tightened, you still manage to twist it. So this is better. So we'll mount this under the camera. So that's our base plate for the rods mounted, and then we'll take this here, and we take the 2 outer screw holes in the base plate. And that's where the Arca Swiss plate goes in. The Arca Swiss plate also has its own toolkit in it. I have similar offset base plates for my Blackmagic cinema cameras from Smallrig that I use. So I was quite happy to see that Kondor Blue does something similar. Okay, that's that plate mounted. Okay, and then let's see here. So if I now go and I fit the lens again with the adapter, and as you can see with the Kondor Blue cage, I have full access to the filter. I can put the filter in and replace it with another one. That's basically something no other cage gives me. So quite happy with that. So the next thing then is V-mount plates. So I have 2 V-mount plates here that you can consider. They're both from Nitze, and the reason I've gone with these is because Nitze has a 45 watt USB-C PD output on their V-mount plates. The only other V-mount plate that has USB-C PD is the Tilta one, but the Tilta one doesn't have as many connections. Now, if you really want a lot of connections, and the reason why I'm looking for connections in the V-mount plate is you want all connections really to the V-mount plate and not into the battery, so that when you replace your V-mount pack, you don't have to unplug a whole lot of cables. They should really be just connected to the V-mount plate. So with the full-size Nitze V-mount plate, it comes with the rod mount, and it comes with the rod mount that has a hinge, so you can actually twist it around, which is really handy. So, and what you get here is you get on this side, you get 2 D-tabs, you get a USB-A, you get an 8 volt, and then if you turn it around, you get a D-tab, a 12 volt, and a USB-C. Additionally, you get a power button up here in the top. So for a rig where you have a lot of gear, where you have a focus motor, you have a screen or a recorder or something, this is the perfect plate. I'm not using this today. I'm going for a smaller setup. So the Nitze Nano plate comes with a rigid mount. That means you can't twist it or anything. So I've removed that, and I have an alternative for that. So the Nitze Nano mount has a D-tab here and a USB-C. Again, 45 watts, that's 9 volt, 3 amps, which is what the Canon R5 C needs. And then it has an 8 volt, 3 amp here, and another D-tab. So 2 D-tabs, a USB-C, and an 8 volt. And that's in many scenarios is plenty. Now the difference opposed to the big one is that this came with a fixed rod mount, but it has mounting points here, 1/4 inch, 4 1/4 inch mounts here, and then it has again 5 1/4 inch on the back, and that's the ones that we need. And what we go with then is a new product from Smallrig, which is a hinge with 2 rod ends, and this actually fits perfectly for the Nitze V-mount. I'm using 2 standard screws that come from you had them in my stash, so they come from other things like Arca Swiss plates or whatever. You just need to find 2. The bottom one is a longer one, and the top one has to be shorter because the thread is not as deep. So I'm using a fairly short one here. I don't know if you can see that. Put these in. Okay, so that's now the start of the rod system. The next thing is then 2 of these threads, they go in here. And then depending on what you want to mount, if you want to use, like I'm not going to use the bars right now, so I'm using some really short ones. But for example, if you want to mount a DJI focus motor, Smallrig make this nice little rod that goes, it starts as a 15mm and then goes down to a 12mm, which is what you need for the DJI focus motors. I'm just using two, I think these are 4-inch tubes. And I could add longer ones if I wanted a lens support or mount other things to it. So that can be adjusted just as you see fit. And it can very, very easily be modified later on also. So that's that done. And they then go into the rod plate. Just loosen this. It's vertical. There we go. That's great. Tighten these in. And just to make this look nicer, I have some end caps that can go on the rods. Voila! So that's my V-mount plate fitted. USB-C port is here, so we take a USB-C cable. I need to get the flap out. That can be a bit. I should have done that before I fitted the cage, but we can maybe use the small Allen key and then pry this cover out.
2,000 years later.
So what I've done is I pulled this out as far as I can and then basically twisted it up and got it out of the way. So USB-C cable seated properly, yes, and then that goes into the USB-C port of the V-mount plate, and then can use the strap that is on this cable. You can use any, there's no cables provided with this, so you just use whatever you have like that. Okay, so that's that. And then I take my V-mount pack and I click that in, and I don't know if you can see this, but my R5 C actually stays full. So that's the nice thing here, right? And this way I can get access to my LCD display when I want to. So basically just tilt this down, okay? I can tilt my LCD display out, and then I can just basically bring the battery pack up again and close this off. The EVF is off anyhow when you have the display flipped out. The EVF isn't working anyhow, so you don't need it. And we put these back in to the rig. Next thing, TentacleSync. That's my time sync. So what I've done is I've put some Velcro here on the back of the LCD screen, and that's where I keep my my TentacleSync, and I plug it in here. Okay, so then the cable. This is a specific cable. I will link this down below. These cables come in two versions. There are some that have half a sleeve and some that have full a sleeve. You don't want one with half the sleeve, because what happens is that if you stick that one into the Canon R5 C, you will be having a hard time getting it out again, because it basically sinks into the TimeSync port and you can't release it again. So you need to make sure that you have one that has the full sleeve all the way to the back here. Is, if you look, it's like, this is obviously, I can reach this, but the first one I actually had one with the short sleeve, and basically had to use tweezers to get it back out again. And it's basically plug the cable into my TimeSync module, and that's my basic rig. And I can then modify that with longer rods and a lens mount and a focus motor as I see fit. It's very easily done. You just screw the rods off and you screw new rods in. But yeah, the nice thing about the Kondor Blue Cine cage is you have access to your filters. That was the biggest thing for me. It's nice to have the spirit level. This is a very, very solid cage with lots and lots of mounting options. It has a NATO rail up here. It has an ARRI mount. You have a cold shoe over here. You have rosette mounts on either side for handles. That's great. The tools are included. It has a DJI Ronin optimized Akka Swiss plate. It lets you slide the camera sideways to get a better balance. And all the rods here used rod caps. That's all Smallrig stuff. This hinge here on the back, that's Smallrig. As I said, the V-mount plate is from Nitze. Yeah, that's my basic V-mount powered Canon R5 C rig. Links will be down below, and I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in another one.